Okay, welcome to the next video. Now, this is where it starts to get just a little bit complicated. So it's not difficult, it's not going to blow your mind or anything. It's just, it starts to get, you got to start thinking a little bit more now. So what I want to show you is a kind of a better way of doing styling. So what I showed you before, kind of inline styling, hey, it works, but you quickly realize it's not very sustainable and you're not going to want to do it for that long. Right, so let's just take, this is our HTML file that I've been making, and let's just get rid of lots of stuff. I mean, all these styles, they're kind of everywhere. You can see that this would get quickly you know, a little bit complex if you were having to do lots of code and there's styles everywhere. You don't really want that at all. So what I'm going to show you in this video is that we don't really use inline styling much. I mean, to be honest, I only use inline styling when I'm being a bit lazy or I'm just kind of like hacking up my code because I don't know what's going on. And so if you use inline styling, you know it's going to work. Because we spoke about kind of cascading styles. So, you know, if you do a style at the top, that's great. But then if you do it lower, it's going to overwrite it. So generally, if you do an inline style, it overwrites everything, which is kind of great. But it's just not the way we really do things. So let's get rid of all these styles and go back to where we were before. Good. All right. So we don't need our A tag anymore. That's not really useful. Okay, well, let's just leave it at that. So if I save that and then let's refresh the page on my browser. Okay, cool. So we're kind of back to where we used to be a few videos ago. Nice and simple. And now we're going to explain a few other things. So one I can show you. So another tag. Let's introduce another tag. We'll put it between the header and the footer because we know that's just like a no man's land where it's going to just kind of sit on its own line. And I'll show you how to make a button. So a button is pretty easy. You just open up a tag and write button and then close it. And that's kind of it. So I've got my opening tag, my closing tag for button. And then what I'm going to do is in the middle, I'm just going to type in whatever text I want. So if I just put, hey, I'm a button, and then I save it, and then I go to my browser, and then I refresh, there it is. Hey, I'm a button. So it looks a little bit old school, this button. It doesn't look very cool. It's got a bit of a hover state there if you hover over it, which is nice. And that's just the default browser behavior. But what I can do is I can style that by using CSS. Now, what I showed you in the last video was what I would do is I would come here just before the end of the word button, and I would type style equals, and then open my little speech marks. And then if I did do background color, because we used that last time because it's pretty simple, and I say it's blue, and then I save that, and then I go back to the browser, then like we'd expect, the background of the button goes blue, and that's pretty cool. I could change the font and all that kind of stuff. But what you'll notice is, imagine if you were creating a website and you made all these buttons blue, and then, I don't know, your boss comes up to you or the client comes up to you and says, can you change the buttons to yellow? I don't like the blue, let's change them to yellow. If you did it this way, you'd have to find every button which is in your website and go in and change it to yellow. And that there could be loads. You know, you're scrolling through code, pages and pages of code, and that just will not do. That's not going to work at all. So that's why we have a different way of doing this. And this isn't inline styling. We call it kind of internal CSS, where the CSS is internal. It's on the page, but it's not inline. And I'll show you how to do that. It's quite clever, and it's, you know, it's a little bit more complicated, but, you know, hey, we'll get there. So this is what we're going to do. Okay, let me just save that. Instead of doing the style inline next to the tag, we're going to go up to the top of the document. So in the head. Now, do you remember I said in the head, you're kind of doing things about the page. You're not presenting anything on the page. You're just kind of talking about what's on the page. So let me just go just below title. And the way this works is there's a tag called style. So if I open it up and click style and close it, then what I can do is I can just define styles in here that I can use down the rest of the page. So I don't have to do it inline anymore. I can just define it at the top and then I can use it freely on the page. So just to explain where it is again, it's in the head, and anywhere in between the head, you put the style. I'll normally do the style right at the bottom. And now I can start defining things. So one thing I could do is I could say, if I just type in button, and then to define styles up here, what you're going to need to do is use these curly brackets. So if I do one of my curly brackets, the code editor is very kind and it gives me the other curly bracket. And then you're going to put your style in between the two. Now, you could start typing in like this, but what generally people do is to actually give yourself a bit of space. If I hit enter, then it does look a bit weird when you first see it, but after a while it looks kind of second nature. It looks natural. So imagine I want all my buttons on this page to have a background of blue. Then what I would do is I would just type in background color here, :blue. So I didn't have to write style equals and all that kind of stuff, because I've done it here. I've opened the tag style, and that's kind of it really. So what I've done is I've opened up my style tag, and then in there I've defined the style for buttons. Let's just save this and see what it looks like in the browser. Yeah, it's still blue, and just to prove that that's working, let's change that to red. Okay, and then we'll save that, and then we'll refresh. Okay, so that's working, and what you'll notice is that I've just set a style that says, hey, buttons have a background color of red. So if the HTML finds any buttons, there it is. That's a button because it's got the button tag. It gives it a background color of red. So if I had lots of buttons on this page, let's just copy and paste this. Imagine I just buttons galore. All of them now are going to be red. Fantastic. But if my boss or if the client comes up to me and says, you know what, those buttons, can we have them pink? You just change it once, save it, and then they all change to pink. So it's fantastic because it just means you have to change something once and then it changes all instances of it, which is brilliant, and that's what we want. And you can kind of do it for anything really. So do you remember we spoke before about the H1 tag? So do you remember that one? So H1 is the page title, so it's this one here, and the logo. I've got two of them at the moment. Imagine if I was to say, do you know what, I want them pretty big actually, I want them massive. Then what you would do is you would say, right, H1s, and then you open your little curly brackets and hit enter. I want them to be big. So the property you want here is called font size. So if I say font -size, and then the value is going to be, let's go for 100 pixels. This is going to be fun. So you can put whatever you want in here, but I've got my little property of font size, and I've got my value of 100 pixels. And so what the HTML file is going to do now is it's going to look for all the H1 tags in this document, and it's going to make them 100 pixels. So let's go over to my browser and have a look. There we go, massive, nice big fonts. But if your boss or the client comes up and says, these H1s, they're all just way too big, can you make the page title a lot smaller? No problem, we just change it here. I change it to 50, I save it, and then all of my H1s are now 50 pixels. So this is great. Okay, that's pretty much internal styling. And then what I'll show you in the next video is how you can kind of create your own styles and not be limited to things like button. You can just make up whatever you want, and then you can use that style anywhere on the page.